You know that feeling, right? You type a question into a search bar, you hit enter, and you get back a page of just completely useless results. It's got to be one of the most common frustrations in our digital lives. So let's dive into why this actually happens and explore why the solution we all think we want is probably the wrong one.
When those bad results pop up, this is the first thing that jumps into our heads, isn't it? If only the system was smarter. If it could just reorder the results and put the good stuff at the top, everything will be fixed. It's our intuitive, go-to, knee-jerk reaction.
But what if I told you that's the wrong way to think about it? Seriously, what if focusing on the order of the results is just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? What if the real problem is happening way before you even see that final list on your screen? And that brings us to the core idea here, what we're going to call the ranking fallacy. The real source of our frustration, more often than not, isn't just bad ordering. No, the real culprit is a fundamental mismatch between the kind of question you're asking and the kind of system that's trying to answer it. This slide just nails the difference. We all live with the ranking fallacy in our heads, this belief that the right information is somewhere in that pile of results, it's just buried. But the retrieval reality is often way harsher. The information you need was never even pulled in the first place. And, well, you can't rank what isn't there.
And this is absolutely crucial. These failures aren't just random glitches. A search system fails in very predictable, systematic ways. It basically hits a wall the moment your question becomes more complex than what its underlying design can even understand or represent.
So, how do we fix this? Well, we have to stop treating all searches the same, because not all queries are created equal. We need to get that there are different categories of questions, and each one needs a completely different approach. So let's break down the 4 main types.
First up, the simplest kind, fact lookup. This is like looking for a needle in a haystack, but you know exactly what the needle looks like. Maybe you even have its serial number. You're searching for a specific product code, a person's name, a precise technical term. For these kinds of questions, you don't need some fancy AI. You just need precision and predictability. You want old-school techniques like lexical search, keyword search, and exact matching. The goal is to get that one right answer, not a list of sort of relevant things. Honestly, in this case, ranking is barely even a factor.
Okay, now let's move to the second type, exploratory questions. Here, you're not looking for a specific needle at all. You're kind of just trying to figure out what's in the haystack. Think of searches like ideas for a vacation in Italy or research on climate change. You don't know the exact answer you're looking for. You're discovering.
And you can see how the needs just totally flip, right? Here, you want high recall, meaning you'd rather see a few irrelevant results than miss some hidden gem. This is where semantic search, which understands meaning and context, really gets to shine. It's built for discovery, not just matching keywords.
All right, now for a trickier one, comparative questions. This is when you ask things like best laptop for students or Salesforce versus HubSpot. You're basically asking the system to make a judgment call, and it has to be based on criteria that you might not have even stated out loud. Okay, so this is where ranking finally enters the chat for real. Ranking quality becomes truly critical, but, and this is a huge but, it only matters after you've retrieved a good, comparable set of items. If the initial results are junk, I don't care if you have the world's best ranking algorithm, it can't help you make a good comparison.
And finally, we get to the frontier, the place where most search systems completely fall apart, relational questions. These are the questions that ask how or why, the ones that require connecting the dots between different pieces of information. For example, what were the economic consequences of the trade policy enacted by the finance minister who previously worked at Goldman Sachs?
So let's break down exactly why this fails. First, a standard search engine just retrieves chunks of text. It'll find documents about the trade policy, sure, and it'll find documents about the finance minister. Second, it ranks those chunks one by one based on relevance. But it hits a hard ceiling at step 3. It can't compose those facts together to understand the relationship between them. It can see the trees, but it has no idea it's standing in a forest. All right, so we've laid out these different question types. The aha moment comes when we realize we just need to use the right tool for the right job. I mean, you wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw, right? The same exact logic applies to search. And this table right here, this is basically the whole playbook. It's the map that connects the problem to the solution. For simple fact lookups, stick with precise lexical systems. For broad exploratory searches, you're going to want to use meaning-based semantic systems.
And for those really complex relational questions, you need a completely different animal, like structured retrieval, that's literally built to understand entities and their relationships.
You know, this analogy is just perfect because it really captures how absurd the situation is. If the data you need is simply not in your spreadsheet, sorting the rows A to Z or Z to A a million times is not going to make it magically appear. And that is exactly what we are doing when we try to fix a deep retrieval failure by just tweaking the ranking.
So what does this all mean? This all brings us to our final takeaway. The path to truly better search isn't about endlessly tweaking ranking models. No, it's about taking a step back to ask a much more fundamental and much more powerful question.
If there is one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. You can't fix a retrieval mismatch with better ranking. It's impossible. If the system is built to find keywords, but you're asking it to understand relationships, the foundation itself is wrong. And no amount of reordering is ever going to bridge that gap.
So, instead of asking, how do we rank this better, the single most important question you can ask when you're building or fixing a search system is this one. What kind of question is this? Because once you answer that, you'll know if you even have the right tools for the job in the first place. And that, well, that changes everything.